if you're watching these videos as they come out earlier this week or within the past week, I uploaded a video with some invasions using this build as well as another build that is similar to it. This is a Faith Arcane build. We are using the Dragon Communion Seal because it scales with Faith and Arcane. And the Arcane is giving us just some weird stuff that can be a lot of fun to play with, like the Marias Executioner Sword. So we've got this Faith Arcane build with a little bit of strength, and then if you watched the video, there's also an Int Arcane build, an Intelligence Arcane build with a little bit of Dex, and that one uses like bleed infused weapons and has like poison infused stuff. And these two builds are kind of like my favorite builds. They are around level 160-ish, and I will show the stats off and all the talismans and everything else. I will show that off at the end of the video so that you can get a look at it. And in the next video that I upload, we will go over the Intelligence Arcane build, I think, for those invasions. And yeah, I can kind of just show both of these builds off. So I talked about how much I enjoy magic in Elden Ring, and never, like, I know a lot of people really liked the magic in Dark Souls 2. The magic in Dark Souls 2 was like just kind of, I don't know, it just never clicked for me. I know a lot of people really like it, and if you like it, that's great. I'm not talking bad about it. It just didn't, click for me for whatever reason. But magic in Dark Souls 1, I really, really liked. And then Dark Souls 3 magic, I just did not like it at all until like way, way, way later. I eventually ripped off a build Adam Barker made that used the Hazel Pick, which was like a war pick that could cast spells. So it was like a weapon that could cast spells. And if you made your build right, it would true combo into a spell that was very similar to Carrion Greatsword. It was Farron Greatsword is what it was called, or Soul Greatsword. Yeah, it was called Soul Greatsword, I think. And then there was a Carrion Slicer type spell. It was called Farron Flash Sword. And then the last Dark Souls 3 DLC added another sword sorcery called Old Moonlight. And this Hazel Pick would like true combo into these things. And that really got me into using those particular spells. And so when Elden Ring came out, I really wanted to remake that build. And so I've been playing with magic since the game came out, more or less. The first build I made was a build that I knew was going to use, whatever this game's equivalent of the Moonlight Greatsword was. That was going to be my first build. So I had access to a little bit of magic on that build. But I think it was like my third or fourth build where I really started to like, okay, I know I've played through the game a few times now. I know where to find most of this stuff. I'm going to wander around. I'm going to find these spells. I'm going to make something out of it. And, that was like the third build I think I made. And I have been like just constantly playing with magic since then and really enjoying it. And so like in this game, if you're an intelligence build, you've got Gavel of Haima, which is, it does good damage, it has big splash damage radius, and it has hyper armor. So you can't just interrupt it. And if you're playing a Faith build, you have something very similar to that with the Dragon Claw spell. And the Dragon Claw spell is boosted by this Dragon Communion Seal that we are using. And I've taken this build into New Game Plus so that I can have 2 Dragon Communion Seals on the build, as you can see in my inventory there. And those, those abilities stack. So the extra dragon damage, dragon spell damage, like that stacks. And you can get that very early into New Game Plus. And as a result, if you hit somebody with any of these dragon spells, like, it's over. And I love that. I really like the idea of these slow spells that can, almost one-shot. Or, they will one-shot, like, a host who doesn't have a lot of health. It's a good payoff for a spell like that. Now, there are spells that, like, I think not every spell should be that strong, right? There are some spells that I think are too strong. Catch Flame is too strong. Carrion Slicer is too strong. And I love those spells, and I'm not going to not use them. But, like, if they nerfed those spells, despite the fact that I like them, I would say, like, yeah, that makes sense. It makes sense to nerf that a little bit. Something like O Flame, for example. Like, O Flame can almost one-shot people. On a spec'd out build, a fully charged O Flame might be able to one-shot people. That doesn't bother me. That's fair, because it takes a long time to charge that up, and its hitbox is honestly like way too small for how slow that spell is. It looks like it's massive compared to Catch Flame, but if you ever compare their actual hitboxes, it's not really that much bigger. But yeah, Catch Flame, on the other hand, absolutely disgusting. But that's what you get if you come at me with Carrion Slicer and the Pew Pew. You try and hit me with that Pew Pew bullet, and then when that doesn't work, you're just going to Carrion Slicer spam. Well, that's why God made Catch Flame, was for that type of thing. And yeah, so this build is a lot of fun. It does a lot of, like, combo casting off of Dragon Claw, or Dragon Talon. I forget what that spell's called. I think it's called Dragon Claw. Basically, Dragon Claw, you can cast it twice. And if you cast it one after the other, the second one comes out pretty fast. But that is true of anything that you cast. If you, instead of casting Dragon Claw twice, if you cast it once and then cast something else, that second spell will come out pretty fast. It's not like super fast like it used to be. When the game first came out, you could, like, chain cast stuff together. It's not that fast, but it's got some speed to it, which is nice. And so I use the Dragon Claw to give me hyper armor so that I can cast the next spell that I want to cast. And some of those spells are spells that are harder to hit people with, like O Flame, or Unendurable Frenzy, or not Unendurable Frenzy, the other one, the grab. I forget what it's called. Unblockable Frenzy, but you can block it or something. I forget what it's called, but the grab one, the Frenzy grab. I'll use one Dragon Claw and then I'll use the Frenzy grab, or I'll use one Dragon Claw and then I'll use Bloodflame Talon, or one Dragon Claw and then I'll use O Flame. And this build was every build that I made that was a spellcaster, and I've made a bunch, they were all sort of like, okay, this is the Pyromancer guy, this is the Dragon Caster guy, this is the Blood Caster guy. They were these themed builds. And this build, on the other hand, was more like, okay, all the stuff that I found that I liked, I'm going to put it all on one build, and I will just try and, like, thematically tie it all together, and so that's what this build is. And that's what the Frog build sort of is as well. But the Frog build is sort of the intelligence version of that. So we've got the Flame of Frenzy, which is a great spell. It does a ton of damage. It's excellent at roll catching people. It is almost unavoidable if you are playing too close to it and you're passive. If you're passive and play too close, the Flame of Frenzy is like a nightmare. That's a really great spell to have. Catch Flame, obviously, is a really great spell to have. The Dragon Talon is a good spell to have. And then I have the spells that aren't as good, but they do cool stuff. Bloodflame Talon, O Flame, and the Frenzy Grab. Those spells are hard to hit, but those first two that I mentioned, if you hit somebody with those, it will true combo into just about anything. A fully charged O Flame will true combo into just about anything in the game, including Eocade's Dancing Blade. And the Blood Flame Talon is the same way. It will true combo into pretty much anything, which is awesome, and I love that. And I love this great sword, and so yeah, this build is one of my favorites. I also have the Regalia of Eocade, which is like the straight sword version of this sword. Instead of a great sword, it's just a standard straight sword, but it has the same Ash of War, and you know, it's an arcane scaling weapon. The great sword is a strength arcane weapon. This one is a, I'm sorry, yeah, the great sword is strength arcane. The straight sword is dex arcane. But if you've got the arcane does magic damage. So like you're getting, you know, even though this build doesn't have a lot of dex, you're still getting pretty good damage. And I use the Millicent's Prosthesis on this build to give me 5 extra points of dex, as well as a combo sets off that buff where you do more damage for as long as you are doing damage. So Eocade's Dancing Blade plus that, you know, you've seen a million builds that use that. This build also does that, but it does it off of like a Blood Flame Talon or O-Flame. You know, basically it does it as like a combo after hitting one of these other spells. The Stone of Garank is pretty good. It's a nice long range option, and at medium range, mid range, it can true combo into itself, which is pretty cool. I think if you have like max cast speed, it will true combo into like a lightning bolt. I'm not sure which one is better. Like, you know, obviously, like if it's raining at whatever area you're in, wet enemies take more damage to lightning. So, you know, it would be worth in that sort of situation to go Stone of Garank into lightning bolt. But look at that! Look at that! That was like, I got hit during that O-Flame, but their hit stun lasts longer than my hit stun. You know, they just hit me with a, you know, little katana attack. I hit them with a great big fireball, so they're stunned longer than I am, which means I can come out of that stun and, yeah, hit them with that Ash of War. The Ancient Dragon Lightning Stake, I also like that spell. It has a good bit of hyper armor on it, but what's really great about that spell is that if you're above your opponent, you can just throw that down at a absurd range. It will go down like a pretty good range. The other red lightning dragon spells are also like that, but some will go down like impossibly far. Like the one that is like Death Lightning but isn't Death Lightning. I don't remember what it's called, but the Ancient Dragon Lightning Stake, it won't go down all the way. Like, it wouldn't go all the way down the Lindell elevator, but the red Death Lightning type spell, whatever that's called, something like that, it will go down for just an absurd amount of time. And that's cool. You know, if your opponent is like standing on an elevator button trying to be cheeky, and that happens all the time. You know, you'll chase somebody, they'll get on an elevator, and while they're on the elevator, they don't get off of it, they stand on that button so that you can't bring the elevator back. Which is, it's funny, because that was the thing that people did in Dark Souls 3. I had never seen anybody do it until then. I'd never seen anybody do that in other Souls games. They might have, I just never saw it. But it was a very popular thing to do in Dark Souls 3. In Dark Souls 3, you know, there were even like strategies for like invaders on how to deal with that sort of thing. Dropping rope firebombs, or you know, famously in a friend of mine's invader run where they were getting invaded while they were playing through the game, the invader hung out on an elevator button, and we had to have someone use a special weapon which would, like, its Ash of War, they were called weapon arts back then, was it created a bomb that followed the wielder around, and it would blow up, and it would do damage to everybody, including the wielder. But everybody, including the wielder, could roll the attack if they knew when to roll it. But we had one of the players in the run equip that and basically do like a suicide mission where they dropped down the elevator shaft at just the right time to hit the invader, and then knock them off of that elevator button so that we could get the run back on track. This dude was ganking with blues, just hanging out all Sunday afternoon. Ganking with blues at the top of a ladder, and when I didn't take the ladder bait, he finally started chasing me. Look at his HP. Look at that. And this is at like level 160. Less than 500 hit points. I did not expect it to be like that, but it do be like that sometimes. Anyway, I told you this was the build, or that I would show it off, and here it is. I'm doing that very thing. I appreciate you hanging out, watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. I will have another one very soon, and instead of the Faith Arcane build, which you are seeing right now, we will be going over the Intelligence Arcane build. And like I said, this build has a little bit of strength. The Intelligence Arcane build has a little bit of dex. This talisman slot here, you can kind of swap this out for whatever you like. Godfrey's Icon is a good choice on a build like this. I think that's what I typically run with. But, even the Star Scourge Talisman, plus 5 strength, is pretty nice. But, yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Until then, later, y'all.